Welcome to a training video on how to create year-to-date batches in PayPak Professional 4.0. Year-to-date batches are usually created in cases where there are payrolls which were done before you started using PayPak Professional, and you need to re-enter past batches for the current year and sometimes also for previous years. This is often done for purposes of tax reporting or severance pay calculation. So let's log in and show you how it would be done. Now, there's no single screen which you would use to create a year-to-date batch. Basically, a year-to-date batch is one where the year-to-date totals, whether they are for a full year or part of a year, are entered manually. The gross pay totals will be broken down by pay rate for each employee. The taxes will be broken down by tax, sometimes also tax category, for each employee, and that would include the employer portion of the taxes. And the deductions would also be broken down by branch, and again that could also include the employer portion of deductions where applicable. So the difference between a regular batch and a year-to-date batch is that you are not going to be calculating the tax using the tax tables which come with PayPak. That's one of the main differences. The totals are going to be coming from probably another payroll package which you may have used before, or you may have been using Excel spreadsheets, or you may have been doing it manually. So you need to have the totals, the gross pay totals, the tax totals, and the deduction totals, and those three together will calculate the net pay for you. There are two ways in which you can do this. One way is to create a batch and manually edit it, which is the option we're going to use for this demo. We have a small number of employees and we're going to create a year-to-date batch for them. The other method is that you could import those totals, and that would be done by creating three sets of files. You would come to the export section of the program, and you would use the export gross pay, export deductions, and export taxes screens to export three data files containing gross pay totals, deduction totals, and export and tax totals. These three screens have their own videos, and you can view those videos if you have a large number of year-to-date totals, or if you wish to utilize the export feature as opposed to keying it in manually. And for the purpose of what we're doing today, you only need to know of these three as an option. We don't actually need to import one for what we're doing. Once you follow the technique from how it's done manually, you can then watch the three videos here, and they will explain how you would enter those totals into a year-to-date batch. So there's the matter of the data files and the totals. Now, PayPak Professional can import information from data files in 4 formats. There's Excel 2007, Excel 2003, there's a comma separated values, and tab delimited, which are 2 text formats. When you're creating the totals for a year-to-date batch, we highly recommend that you use the Excel formats, one of the 2 Excel formats, because it's easier to work with your data in an Excel format to import it. It's easier, much easier than having to use the CSV and tab delimited files. They are mainly for files which are generated from some sort of automated system for import into PayPak. They're not the best choice for files which you are manually editing where you're keying the totals in. Now, if you are not importing the data and you are keying it in manually, you need to have it totaled up or summarized in the required format. If you had started using PayPak in June of the current year and you have past totals from January to May, you may want those totals entered so that your employees' payslips would reflect the correct year-to-date totals and not just the totals from June going forward. You may also have started your business maybe 2 years ago. You started in 2019 and you have a whole year's data for 2019 and a whole year's data for 2020. And you wish to key that, to import that into the system, to get it into the system so that for your record keeping purposes, maybe for tax reporting purposes, maybe to assist you if you have later to do severance pay calculations, that all the numbers would be inside of PayPak. So the first thing you would need to do, regardless of whether you're importing these totals or whether you're keying them in manually, is you need to have them compiled somewhere. You need them in typically a spreadsheet. Maybe you have reports already which you can generate from your older or which were already generated from your older payroll system, and they have to be organized according to in the case of the gross pay, the pay rate codes which you use in PayPak, because you don't just want a total of the gross pay. You need to know how much was regular pay, how much was overtime, how much was double time, how much was vacation, how much was bonus. For the deductions, you may have deductions for cash shorts, for cell phone charges, for medical insurance, life insurance. For the taxes, you may have tax totals for national insurance and for income tax and maybe other types of taxes. Some customers will also use the taxes section of PayPak to calculate deductions where there's an employer portion of a deduction. So the first thing you need to do is to have the totals for each employee. And I have here a spreadsheet which I prepared called Year-to-Date Totals 2019. I'll open this up and show you the sort of information, the sort of layout which you need in order to begin. So we have here 4 employees, and for each employee we have gross pay information, we have tax information, and we have deduction information, and these totals will calculate the net pay amounts. So let's have a closer look at this. You're going to need the regular pay, overtime, double time. This says triple time. Each type of pay which the person had for that past period, broken down into the pay rates which you are currently using. So this spreadsheet was prepared with these headers being current pay rates, descriptions of current pay rates. There may be some pay rates which you currently have which are not in here because they were not part of the history. You don't need those. You only need the ones for which there were transactions. And these pay rates may or may not be in the employee profile. And if they are in the employee profile, it makes it easier when you're preparing the batch. If they're not in the employee profile, then you have to add the lines. It's a little bit more work to do it manually if they're not in the employee gross pay profile. Each person has a total, and there's an overall total here. Next we have the taxes. And for the taxes, we've got NIS and income tax. We also have a fortress pension calculation which was entered through the taxes section of the software. And again, there are totals for each person. It's also very important to note that where there is an employer total, employer portion of the deduction, that should also be entered. So this is the employer's portion of NIS and the employer's portion for the fortress pension, and a total of all the employer taxes. In this case, this is treated as a tax in this particular case. The reason you would have these totals is to more easily check back the totals after you've entered everything. The screen in the edit batch will display totals for these figures. Then we have the deductions. In this case, we've got cash shorts, sports club, guardian pension, and Sagicor Life. And two of them, the guardian pension and the Sagicor Life, they have employer portions as well, just as the taxes do. And we have a total for them as well. At the bottom, you have the net pay totals for each employee and overall, because when everything is done, you would check back the net pay total to verify that this figure is correct, that the net pay total is correct. So basically, this gross pay minus the taxes minus the deductions equals the net pay. So let's get started with getting this information keyed into the system. Now, if you wanted to use the import files for the gross pay, for the taxes and the deductions, you still need to have the figures totaled up like this first, and then you drop them into those Excel spreadsheets, those 3 Excel spreadsheets for the gross pay, the taxes, and the deductions. If your old payroll system is able to export the information as CSV files or tab delimited files with the required pay rate codes or tax codes or authority branch codes, then you are good to go. You do not necessarily have to put it in Excel, but Excel is the recommended format. So let's get started. Minimize this, and we are going to begin. First of all, we need to create a new batch. In this particular case, the totals are for the year 2019. So we click on New Batch, and we want let's say we go for the end of December of 2019. In some cases, let's go for December now. We can go for the 31st, especially if you have monthly paid employees. In some cases, you may not want to use the 31st because for NIS purposes, say that you'd not started your batches for 2020 yet, and you were going to enter a batch, a weekly batch. You had weekly paid batches, and you enter a batch on the 3rd. Your first batch is on the Friday, or maybe any of these other days here, any day in this week. If you start your weekly paid batch using the 3rd, the Monday of that week is the 30th of December. For NIS purposes in many countries, those entries belong to the NIS period for the 30th of December. So that's the last NIS week in December. Now, if you've keyed that information in already, it probably will not be a problem. So what you should do is make sure before you do your year-to-date batch, or any year-to-date batch for that matter, choose the date carefully. You may want to avoid any overlaps with this particular week where a new year begins. So you may want, in this case, to use the 27th of December, which will be the last Friday that weekly staff would have been paid. Or if it's monthly, it's probably any date you can use if it's monthly. It wouldn't matter in the case of the monthly. If you were preparing a year-to-date batch for May, you started your payroll in June of 2021. So let's go back to the current month. You started in June, and May ends on the 31st. Again, you may not want to use the 31st for your year-to-date totals. Well, it all depends, because what happens is if you're creating your batches and you're starting in June, weekly paid, the first week for many NIS jurisdictions begins on the 7th of June, this week here, as opposed to this week here where the Friday is the first Friday, but for NIS that's the last week in May. So you have to choose your date carefully for when you wish to date the year-to-date batches, so there's no problem with the overlaps and tax calculations, especially if you have to go back and maybe you may have reason to go back and unpost another batch and you don't want problems with the taxes overlapping. So let's come back here. We are going to go back to 2019 December, and in this case let's assume that the week for the 3rd was done already, and that belonged to the last week in December, the 30th. So that's not the first week in January, that's the 30th. For pay-away purposes, well, it's probably will not make much of a difference if we dated it here, but if you had pay-away, the pay-away, it is, if it's weekly, it overlaps here, it would overlap there, because that's in that week. So let's date it the 27th to keep it well out of the way of other existing batches. We need a reference such as year to date. I'll just put year to date totals 2019. Okay, that's good enough. And then the payroll set. Now I created a payroll set called year to date test, which contains 4 employees, and these are the 4 employees here. Now in your batch, you don't want the taxes applied for a year-to-date batch. You turn that off. So any NS, payaway, etc. is out. They're going to be entered manually. You do not want taxes being calculated using the normal tax bands in the software. They're going to be entered manually from the spreadsheet totals. Deductions, that is, you are probably going to want to use the deductions. However, you're not going to want loans. Most likely, you have to be careful if there's anything marked as a loan. So this could go sort of either way. You could decide to turn it off and then you enter the lines manually for each deduction. That may be a safer thing to do. There may be cases, however, where a person has deductions going to 3 different accounts for the same institution, or 2 or more accounts going to the same institution, and you may need the account numbers for each individual deduction in that case so that your year-to-date totals are separated, and that would depend basically on the branch IDs, so your branch IDs for those institutions are configured. If you turn on the apply deductions, the amounts will come up which would be normally deducted in each pay period, but you're going to overwrite them. So the plus side of applying the deductions is that the deductions which the person has are most likely they would have had them also in the prior periods, and the lines will be there when you create the batch, and all you have to do is change the totals, which could save you some work. If this is a major concern for you, it may be best to import. Use the import option to export use the export deductions section to create a data file to fill that out, as opposed to doing it manually. Now, I only have 4 employees, so I will show you, I'll leave them in to show you what's involved, and that would hopefully give you a little better insight as to what you would do in your particular scenario, because the amount of editing you have to do, it could be a bit more, maybe it's a bit less, but there would be some editing involved. And depending on the number of employees you have and the number of deduction lines you have per employee, that could add up, and you might want to avoid unnecessary data entry. So we have our settings for the batch, and I'm going to click on prepare and prepare this batch. Now, it's detected an overlapping batch because we have some other test batches in there before, and I will say yes to this, and I will continue despite the warning there because I know this is for an older period. Yes to create a new batch, and the new batch is created. Now, the next step would be to edit the batch. So we go to the edit batch screen. There's our batch, number 199, and it has nothing in it except for a 290 total for deductions, and that would be because we chose the option to take out deductions, and those deductions came to 290. Those will be removed or replaced. So let's edit the batch and see what we have to do. So Yvette Daniel, she has a deduction of $75, and that $75, this is, well, 3 deductions: $40 to Sagicor Life, $15 to Big D's Sports Club, Guardian pension is $20, and there is nothing for the cell phone charges in there. Now, there's no taxes. There's no gross pay in terms of the quantity. The rates are there. They're going to change. Now, what we want to do, since we're doing this manually, is to move this across to get our spreadsheet and maybe make this as small as possible. I want to be able to see her totals. So let's pull this over here. You can see a good amount of that. You can always scroll over if necessary. Let's see if you can hide this column. Bring this in a bit. If I had a printout, that would be helpful too, but we can use, this is fine, this is good. And we would now put this fellow over here, stretch it out a bit more. Good. And we are in a position where we can begin. So first person is Yvette Daniel. She had regular pay of $11,898. So what you want to do, look for her regular line, which is the first line. Now you're probably going to want to turn off this prorating if you have prorating turned on. So go to options and you would say want to suspend prorating. Then you're going to come here to the gross pay, because I'm going to be changing the rates and I don't want the rates to prorate when I key them in. All the quantities are going to be 1. So for her regular, the quantity is 1 and the rate is the $11,898. Like that. She has overtime of $837. So I go to her overtime line, I key in the 1 and I put 837, like that. Then I go to her double time, quantity of 1 and the rate of $684, like that. Then I go to triple time, quantity of 1, total $540. Then we go to the service charge. Now she did not have service charge in her list, and it's important that I point this out. We're going to add the service charge as a pay rate, but you are not going to set it up as service charge. So we come here, standard pay, we pick service charge, the pay rate only, quantity of 1. Sorry, that's the wrong column. That's the prorate column. Let's put a 0 in there. Quantity of 1, and override here so we can put in the amount, 7157.83. Then we want the next thing. She has discretionary pay, bonus, and other. So discretionary pay is $32.40. That's here. We put a 1. $32.40 goes there. The bonus, there's a line for that. We put a 1, and the bonus is $4.15. She has something called other pay. We could add a line, or we can use an existing line. Now notice that these job types here say a bonus, and that could affect the accounting summary, which you probably will not need because it's year-to-date totals and this would have been done before. So I could have maybe used her vacation line, or I could just, her default job type is wages cook. So I will come here, I will choose other, I will put the 1, and we will put in the $300 here. Oops, I have to overwrite it in order to edit. And that's her total. So when we look back, you would check the total, and the gross pay total is $25,071.83. That agrees. That's fine. And what you would do at this point is you could now enter her taxes if you want. You can do this in one of two ways. You could enter all the gross pay for each person to get your gross pay totals in. Then you could enter all of the taxes to get the taxes in. And then you could enter all of the deductions to get the deductions in. I am going to go with the gross pay. So we'll be going down the list in this order. So to move to the next person, I have to save this. That is saved. We go to Yvonne Davis. And for Yvonne Davis, the regular, remember we have to put the quantity as 1. Regular 10703.2. The overtime 1 at 1695.75. The double time is 1,513. The triple time 1 at 930.75. You have service charge. Again, I'll add that one. I could have also the vacation line was not used, so this time let me use the vacation line and just change that to service charge. 1 goes there, and the service charge is 1511.10. Please note that you would not use this option for service charge if you normally calculate service charge within PayPak. It must be set as standard pay in the case of a year-to-date batch. Okay, so we continue. We've got discretionary pay 1 at 3060. We've got the bonus 1 887.84, and we've got other, which we can add. Well, we could use NS refunds here. Let's use that one. Sorry, that's overtime. Other, and 1 at $100. Key that in. Then we go back to the spreadsheet, look for her total. That's 2401.64. That agrees with the gross pay total there. Then we move on to Johan Denny. Save her, and Johan Trey Denny. Same procedure. 1. I could probably put all the 1s in here one time. And then I could come here, and his regular is 11,862. His overtime is 1458. His double time is 144. His triple time is 378. And his service charge, let's change this to service charge, is 1504.22. It's very important that you make sure that everything's assigned to the correct pay rate. We've got discretionary pay of 3240. We've got a bonus of 432.25, and we've got other, which we'll use this one here. Switch this to other. He has other pay of $100. That comes to $19,188.47. Let's go back to our spreadsheet, and that's correct. $19,188.47. We can save this entry and proceed to the last person, which is Johan Dottin. And again, I will set my totals to ones, my quantities to ones. 13,482.7, 1270.5, 1518. Triple time is 957. We have service charge. So we change this fellow here to service charge. And the service charge was 4159.23. We scroll over to get the others. He had discretionary pay of 3960. He had a bonus of 333.25, and $800 was the other, which I'll move this from NS refunds and put that under the other so that the year-to-date totals for other would be correct on his subsequent pay slips. So that total is 26. His total gross here, 26,480.68. That is correct. He's the last employee, so we can also check the total. And we don't have a difference. It's correct. I was looking here. It's here. I have to look at the total gross. 91,072.62. So that ties in here, and I can save that, and I know now that my gross pay is correct. My gross pay totals balance. I can now move on to the taxes. Now for the taxes, that's done on the taxes tab, and these taxes have to be entered as fixed taxes. There is no taxes applied here. You don't use this. They're all done here. So the first person, Yvette Theresa Daniel. Let's do the NIS for her. You come to the category, you click here, you look for the national insurance. Now these are all weekly paid employees, so I pick the NIS weekly. I have an option for the taxable amount. That's optional. I will forego in this case. I'll just enter the NIS for her, and that was 2099.67, and the employer's portion, which is here, 2411.78. Then we have income tax, PAYE. We're going to set her at 250. Now, if you do not know, if your employees are at various different tax bands, it would be helpful to have those tax bands listed here. But in this case, we're using these default ones. But if they varied, you could say what they are. Now, her income tax is 4987.42. There's no employer portion for that. They have a fortress pension in there, and now in this case the fortress pension has a voluntary portion of it and a mandatory portion of it, and I am not sure from the listing here if that was broken down into those two components. So we'll just go with the mandatory weekly one, and the totals we'll put in there, the 4491.18. So that's an interesting point. If you need to have your mandatory portion and the the compulsory portion and the voluntary portion separated for things like pensions, you should have that separated in your spreadsheet, because you may need it for reporting to the pension to the institution where you're sending the pensions to. Now, the employer portion was 4662.38, and we key that in there. And that is her total. Now, the taxes total is 11,578.27, which is here. That's correct. There is a total for the employer taxes, which is 24,1178. 24,1178. I should be seeing an employer total. I've not saved it yet. That's the reason why probably I save it. Right, and it's 74.16. So if I come over here, I have 70.74.21. So something was entered incorrectly. Yes, it's 4662.43. So 4662.43. Key it in, save, and we have 7074.21. So that's correct to that point. I now move to the next person, Yvonne Davis, and we do the same thing. She's going to have national insurance. She's going to have income tax, 250W, and we will put her at the mandatory pension option. And her totals are, we need to come back over here a bit maybe and see if we can see all of them in one go. Let's maybe bring this screen over a little bit. Good. So national insurance, 2068.04, 2068.04. 3. No, that's not right. The employer for NIS. 2375.43. The income tax is 3815.94 and 3017.05 here, and 2728.33. And we again check, or we save that, we check our totals. Something doesn't look right. Oh, sorry, I was looking at the batch totals. Since it's the second person, her individual entry totals will be here. So this is incorrect. The employer taxes is 5103.76. 3017.05. Why do I keep doing this? 2728.33. And we save that. 5103.76. And it says 8901. Oh, sorry. The total is not on there. The total is still hidden. So I might need to bring this across a little bit more so that we can see everything. All right. 8901.83, 8901.03, sorry, and that's it. And let's move you over a bit. Okay. And we go to the next person, Johan Denny. Halfway through. National insurance. The income tax, 250W, and the Fortress pension. So his national insurance amount is 1963.99, 1963.99. His, sorry, that's the taxable, 1963.99 is the employee. The employer portion of NIS is 2375.43. His PAYE is, nope, that's the wrong person. This is 2255.95. Right, that's his. And 19, right, his income tax, 3953.4. And the Fortress pension, 1189.73. You have to be very careful with this. And also 1189.73 there. I will save it and check the totals now. We have 344568, so that's correct for the employer taxes. We have 710712. Good. And then we move to the final person, Johan Dotten. Enter the 3 lines. NIS. Income tax at 250W. And we have a Fortress pension. And the NIS for him, 2423.3. And the employer's portion is 2783.53. His PAYE was 3343.47. And for Fortress, 2588.07. And the employer's portion was the same amount, 2588.07. So save, you have to save it first for the taxes to calculate. You have to remember that. 5173.60 and 83.54. I've got 84, it's 30 cents out. So it's this fellow here. 3343.27. 30. We save that. 83.54. 64. 835464. And we can check the totals because that's all the taxes. The tax total here, 35,941.06. And the employer portion is 20,995.25. So that's our gross pay and our taxes. Last of all is the deductions. And for those, we go back to the first person, you click on the deductions tab, and many of the figures, many of the lines are here already. So this may be a little easier. You do not need to change the rate, that doesn't matter. As long as it's amount, you can change it directly in the amount. So, the first person, Yvette Daniel, she has cash shorts of $73, which is not in here. There is guardian pension of $10.85. So we'll put the $10.85 in there. Just she has surgical life. Oh, sorry, that's correct. All right, cash short, she has $73. So we'll put the $73 in this line. I will change this line from that to, there was an authority, I believe, for you'd put it to the authority where the cash shorts would normally go. And in this particular database, I believe that the cash shorts would go to one of these two options here. No, there it is. Cash shorts one. There it is. There it is. There you go. So that's our cash shorts authority, $73. I could either delete this line for the sports club. She does not have any year-to-date totals for the sports club. I'll just put it as 0. These lines will be stripped out in posting. So her deductions, 1158 here, and there's an employer portion. So let's come over here. The employer portion, there was guardian pension 852.50. So we will come over here, and in the employer portion, we drop in our amount 852 point. Sorry, that's in the rate. 852.5. There's nothing for Sagicor, and we save that one for her. So you have 852.50 as her employer deduction, which agrees here, and the total is 1158, which agrees here for the deductions for her. Now we go to the next person, Yvonne Tiffany Davis. And for Yvonne Tiffany Davis, she has cash shorts of $50. She has 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 lines there. So which one doesn't agree? The cell phone charges. So we can take the cell phone charges and change this one to the cash shorts. The cash shorts being $50. The sports club is 540. Guardian pension is 465. And Sagicor Life is 1,450. Good. Then we come over here to the employer totals. There's nothing for Sagicor Life, so that goes to 0. There's something though for Guardian Pension, and that was 232.50, 232.5, and we save her entry, and we have, oh, there was a Sagicor Life one. Hold on. This is okay. There's 2. We missed something for the employer, I think. The Sagicor employer portion is 2870, 2870, and 232.50 for Guardian. So save that, and we have for her 3102.50 here, and 2505 here for deduction, so that is good. The next person is Johan Tredeni, and again we can have cash shorts. We can change the cell phone charges to the cash shorts. His cash shorts was 436.04. The Guardian, the sports club, let's go to the sports club. Sports club was 540. Then we have the Guardian pension as 1085 and Sagicor Life as 1450. For the employer portion, his Guardian is 852.5 and his Sagicor is 2870. There's nothing else, so we save that, and his totals here is 377,250 for the employer, and for the employee total 351104. which agrees here. Final person, Johan Dottin, and he has cash shorts. So we'll change this line here for cash shorts. The total will go in as 246.84. He has nothing for the sports club, so we put a 0 there. He has 465 for Guardian Pension, 465, and he has nothing for Sagicor. And his deductions for the employer portion, those are to Guardian Pension in the amount of 232.5 and nothing for Sagicor. So we save his entry. We have 232.50 for the employer, and over here 711.84 for the employee deduction total. So it is finished. Now what we need to do next is to look at our net pay totals, and there's our full net pay total, 47,245.68, which indicates that everything is correct. You may also want to look at the net pay totals for the individual employees, and here you have 12,335.56, 8,995.61, 8,531, and 70,414.20. So that concludes the editing of your year-to-date batch. That batch could now be posted, and we just tell it yes, and we are done. And that brings this video to a close. So I will close here, minimize this, and in the batch control, when we pick the year 2019, there's our batch, which we just entered for those 4 employees. As I said, this could be much quicker if you had the actual editing process could have been quicker if you were importing this information, but you would still need to key it into the spreadsheet. So you know, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of another, but you understand the process now. So thank you very much for the time you spent with us, and do look out for the next training video. Remember to have a look at the export gross pay, export taxes, export deduction screen, as well as the import gross pay, import taxes, and import deduction screen if you have a large number of employees and you wish to do a year-to-date batch. So until next time, take care and goodbye.